Matt.
Hi, Barbara. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, of course, of course. I couldn't be doing a session without you, Matt. I mean, you're all over the internet. I'm loving your podcast.
Good. I'm pleased you're enjoying it. Which bits are you enjoying most? Or
Well, I went back to the very start.
okay.
Yes, so I'm starting from the very start through the back. And obviously, I've been on your course last year, so there's a lot of things that resonate. And I go, oh, yeah, I was meant to do that. And off I hop.
Fab.
So,
Well, I hope you get a lot of value from it.
oh yeah, absolutely. Always do with your stuff, Matt. I always do. On that note, for anyone who's been not fortunate enough to meet you yet or have met you at one of our events, can we quickly introduce you and just let us know what you do?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm Matt. What do? I help organizations predominantly with their sales. And if I sort of expand on that a little bit, Barbara, typically the people I work with tend to have one or two significant problems in their business, sales related. And if I really condense that down, first thing is they have conversations with customers that sometimes go nowhere, or sometimes when they go somewhere, they go on too long. Sometimes they spend too long with the wrong kind of people. So I guess the first problem they have is that the conversations take forever and they feel a little bit out of control. And then the second problem that they tend to have is when they do have those conversations and they start to become meaningful and there's just a chance there could be the opportunity to help each other out, then they struggle to get that person to say yes. So I have a training company that ultimately specializes in solving those two problems. We shorten the amount of time it takes to speak to the right people, and that by its very nature allows people to get more yeses, help more people get involved in their product.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I can only second the many other people of how brilliant your training is. No matter, yeah, no, and I think, and I mean that sincerely, I think no matter, the one thing I really liked about your course is that it didn't matter that I'm a one-woman band. It's just as applicable to me as it would be to someone who works in a sales department of a big organization.
It's a good point actually, Barbara, because I have a number of sort of key threads run through the work that I do with people. The first one is I have this mantra, which is everybody's in sales, we're all selling something, and we are. It doesn't matter if you're a school kid trying to sell your parents not doing the homework, if you're a parent trying to sell your employer on getting a pay rise. Everybody in some way, shape or form has to find a way of influencing people to get what you want. And those are really, that's how I would sum up how selling is. And I think the second thing is the whole stereotypical image of the sales industry is pretty near. And there is a lot of credence in why that should be. There's a lot of people out there, Barbara, really screwing up the industry that I work in. As people are in the estate agent industry, solicitors industry, there's a whole raft of charlatans out there. But my industry tends to get quite a lot of flack, and to some extent quite rightly so. But the reason that happens is because people complicate it. They make what is effectively a very logical, sequential, step-by-step process kind of really weird. And it's that really weirdness that stops people from enjoying the process of being sold to, because no one likes to be sold to. They love buying stuff. So it stops people from enjoying that buying process. It's a very emotional process. And that, because they wing it, they get it wrong. So, yeah, it's an interesting place to be.
Yeah, especially in the current times, because I mean, I have definitely noticed, and you have heard me moan about this a lot. I'm getting bombarded with sponsored adverts or even posts by other organizations where the slogans are very much like make you a millionaire in a year, or this is how to sell, and basically it's all about pester, and it's like, oh god, it's like, just leave me alone, please. It's too much.
It's absolutely, at the moment, I mean, I spend most of my time on LinkedIn. I don't really do too much on the other social channels, but there's a lot of spaghetti throwing going on where yeah, there's a simple fundamental when it comes to the industry that I work in, And every one of us who are buyers, which we all are, which is we buy for our reasons, not anybody else's. And so unless someone engages with you on your terms, how on earth they think they're ever going to get a conversation going? And this sort of slinging spaghetti at the wall, hoping it will stick by my stuff, it's just kind of stupid, really. And all it really does is it sort of formalizes their stupidity, which is a bit of a shame, really.
Yeah, and it will actually put me off using their products ever again. I mean, I've got event manager in my LinkedIn profile, so I get targeted a lot by, especially at the moment, tech software solutions. And the amount of LinkedIn direct messages I receive from people who very clearly haven't took the time to look at my profile to actually vet that I am the right person for them. I mean, I'm getting too many messages, and I don't reply to them. Like,
well, why would you? There's nothing in it for you.
I have no time. It takes time, you know.
That's the other really sad thing about this whole thing is, you know, we live in unprecedented times. That there's never before in history ever been more information available to more people for free than there currently is. And if anybody thinks that they can engage with me or with you without doing some form of research before they do, I'm going to get quite insulted by that fact. Because if someone picks up the phone to me and they have a conversation, so Matt, tell me about your business, I'm going to kind of almost think to myself, well, you obviously don't give a poo about me, because otherwise you'd have found out, and the first question you ask me is something about my business. So it's not difficult. But again, I'm back to that point I said earlier, Barbara, which is it's so logical. If people just take the time to think about how is the best way that I can help Barbara in her business, I know what I'll do. I'll try and work out what challenges she might have. I'll do some research in her industry. I'll go and find out who she's connected to. Maybe I can find some way or some link that allows me to at least start the conversation off on her terms. Then I can get a conversation going, but they fall at the first hurdle.
Absolutely. So speaking about unprecedented times, how are you coping with the lockdown?
Do you know what's funny? I'm actually quite enjoying it. I'm not enjoying what's happening to the business, because within a couple of weeks, all of my business that was in my diary kind of paused. Some of it's fallen out. I think there's justified reasons why that should be. I think people are really concerned about the future. And we are a little bit in fight or flight, where people are protecting themselves, and cash flow is important. So yeah, the first couple of weeks was a bit of a jolt. But I'm actually quite enjoying the process. I've worked from home for quite a number of years. Only the last couple of years have I moved into an office, but so coming back to the home environment's been quite easy for me. I haven't really lost the process of getting up at the right time, going into the office. In fact, if anything, I'm probably spending too long in here. So my wife keeps telling me, but so I haven't really had a challenge with that. Personally, I've really enjoyed spending more time with my wife and my son, walking the dogs a couple of times a day. So actually, to be fair, Barbara, it's not really impacted me too much in terms of that respect. In fact, I can see a lot of positives from it.
No, absolutely. And my situation is very similar to yours in that respect, that with the exception that I can't go to the pub, which is, a first world problem, really.
Has your alcohol intake gone up? Mine has.
It didn't at first, but it definitely has now, and I've had to implement some rules. So I'm managing it.
What rules? Teach me.
Well, the big thing for me is I'm still working with our friend Kyle, so my calorie intake has gone up. So I've had to go back to the gin and tonic, because that's the only thing I don't throw back, and it's drink it slowly, and just stick to weekends and not open the bottle during the week, which is tempting when you're catching up with people over Zoom, because it's much easier to just have a glass here.
It's really interesting actually, because at 5 o'clock, pop downstairs when we finish the day, and Sue's probably got a little glass of wine going. I'll go and have a little glass. In Europe, that's normal, yeah. Stop at 1. They stop at 1, or maybe make it last for a lot longer. Us Brits, first one, there's another one, and then before you know it, I mean, I know you're Swiss, but from our perspective, it's not easy.
No, and that's my biggest problem. I've become too British in that sort of result, because when I was younger, we used to stay up all night and drink all night, but never at the speed at what we drink in this country. So, you know, the early closing hours over here actually makes sense because you'd be dead otherwise. It just wouldn't, just wouldn't survive it. Yeah. So, that's what I was going to ask you. Now, I have a feeling you're going to love this question. Bookshelf. Everyone's been talking about the bookshelves. Now, you and I both don't have a bookshelf behind us at the moment, but if there was one, what are your sort of top picks of reads that have either shaped you or something that you're reading at the moment that you'd recommend?
At the moment, I see. I'm a weird old soul, really, Barbara. I don't read. I only read sales books. How sad is that? And if it's not sales or business based, I don't read it. So my Audible library is just full of boring old sales stuff. What am I reading at the moment? I'm reading a book by a guy called Chris Voss called Never Split the Difference, which is he is a ex-FBI hostage negotiator, turned sort of sales trainer, if you like, for want of a better expression. He's a bit more than that, actually. But in principle, what the book describes is when he was in the late 70s, early 80s, when he was a hostage negotiator, and he talks about a number of cases where he talked people out of bank heists, where they'd hijack people. And he brings that into the world of business. And that's a really fascinating read. Talks a lot about the psychology of language, because if you can imagine, if you've got a guy in a bank with a gun held to hostages' heads, there are certain words and phrases that you don't want to be using, and certain ones that you should do. So that's a really interesting read. I would encourage anybody who's into that world of sort of business and finance and sales to have a think about that one. That would be the first one. I think you and I have had conversations in the past. I love anything that Daniel Priestley's done. I've got the second, my bookcase is over there. I've got the second edition of Oversubscribed, which is one of his 4 that he produced, which I haven't started yet, but that's next on the list. Obviously, I've got my book, and I've got my next book coming out in July. We won't talk about that. Here's a good one. This is a sort of a motivational book to some extent, if you can see that, but it's the 7 Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra. That's a really good read. It's really heavy on in terms of mindset and attitude, but there's some brilliant stuff in there. So yeah, that's me really. That's the sort of stuff I'm reading.
Well, don't feel embarrassed. My Audible list is literally self-development books and nothing else. Yeah. I can't do fiction. It doesn't agree with me.
No. Although I would say one thing, Barbara. I read recently The Fear Bubble by Ant Middleton. You know the guy off SAS?
Yeah.
Celebrity SAS guy. He's written a couple of books. The second one, The Fear Bubble, is a really good read. In fact, I would encourage anyone who's got kids to read that book. For the kids to read the book, not them, or them as well. But it's a really great look at how we are holding ourselves back so much by the fact that we fear stuff. You think about the situation we find ourselves in right now. For all the obvious reasons, lots of people are fearful of what might happen next. And what he sort of teaches in his book, The Fear Bubble, is the fact that fear is over there. It's not here. You're not in it now. It only happens in the future when you actually meet that one event. Clearly, when you meet that event, you need to have yourself in a situation where you can deal with it. But it really helps you understand about how often we sort of spoil life's events and life's experiences because we're fearful of what might happen, even though it probably won't. So that's another really good read.
That definitely resonates. And on a segue from that, as I found out quite harshly, as oddly enough, we all fear of getting ill, and then when you actually do get ill, it's weird how you just find ways to cope. You know, I'm not saying it's a nice experience, but your brain somehow magically does something to help you to cope when your fear does come true.
That is such a great example as well, because if you take what you just said now and you bring that into the coronavirus situation we find ourselves in, the brain does have a way of finding an answer. It'll have to. And the more we put ourselves into sort of radical and extreme situations like this, the more we have to use our brain to go after things. I think there's probably a number of different types of people. And I'm not a psychologist, but I would imagine there'll be some people who, at the start of this sort of 6, 7, 8 week lockdown, wherever we are right now, probably have gone into freeze mode and just don't know what to do next. But I think there's a lot of people, and certainly the people that you hang around with, the people in good eggs, will probably have a mindset which is, okay, I've got to do something. I can't just sit here. I need to go and do something. And I think that's where their brain starts to look for a solution. I was on a webinar last night with a guy, and one of the, there's a lot of really good, helpful information that came out. But one of the really important things that came out of that for me, Barbara, was the fact that even though it's been a really tough time and will continue to be challenging, ask yourself the question: what has coronavirus and the scenario that you found yourself in allowed you to do differently now? Right? Because like you, I've learned to do new stuff in the last few weeks. We're doing stuff like this now. I've done loads of these. You've done loads of these. I'm now really comfortable with Zoom. I've changed my user experience so that people can get in touch with me easier. I've set up a little hybrid business so I can do some coaching online. I finished that second book that I was trying to get finished. So, and I think if everybody sort of sat down for a minute and wrote a list of, okay, what have I been able to learn, and what can I do differently? What can I do better? I'm sure there's stuff. There must be. And I think that's where the brain goes after the answer for you.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I also would challenge that. I don't think types per se necessarily exist, because I do feel that we all just react differently to different challenges. So I may have had, I see it with my cancer experience. At the beginning, I had this amazing brain who allowed me to figure things out and be very clear. And even though it was really hard and actually a very traumatic time, I survived it. I was fine. But then later I come across smaller issues and I lose my rag and I go like, what the hell? So I do think every time we come across something new, our brain sort of resets and deals with it differently. I've not quite seen yet the rhyme or reason for it, but I'm sure as time progresses and I get a bit older, I will. Yeah. Right, we've come to that moment in our little chat when I have my random jar of questions. Yes. Now, I don't actually know. Yes, so I don't actually know or can't quite remember what's all in here. So I hope most of it's appropriate, because I wrote these a couple of years ago and they've just been in that jar ever since.
Oh, wow. I mean, you've been thinking about this stuff. That's just fab.
Exactly, So let's pull one out.
Just before you ask me that question of questions, so I'm really interested to know from your perspective, what would you write down on your list? Is there anything comes to mind that you've, if you look for the positives in every situation, what are you able to do differently now as a result of the last 6 or 7 weeks? Or what's come to your attention that you think would help you?
Well, it's a bit weird for me because I've been in lockdown for 1.5 years.
Oh, that's true.
Yes. So I'm still on that path, and it's weird that I seem to have 2 crises that have come together at the same time. On one hand, it's been a really positive experience for me because I'm less lonely because I have the other half at home, which has been brilliant. And it also means having him at home, it gets me more active because there's someone else here, so I actually have to. And then I think most things that have happened to me over the last few weeks, I hope in some sort of sense that even if that we were in normality, whatever that may mean, that the progression would be the same. So I've had a fantastic few weeks where I've actually been able to work for a few hours every day, like consistently, which for me is amazing, because I've had a year of being able to work and then crash, and actually to be able to consistently have energy without any major crashes it's been amazing. And I don't know, I wonder if a contributing factor was that I don't have any FOMO at the moment.
Yeah.
Don't have any fear of missing out on stuff, like, because nothing else is going on, and everything that is going on is accessible to me in a way that doesn't drain my energy. So I hope the trend continues slowly upwards. So I think that's where I am at the moment.
Great.
Oh, okay. Well, this is a good one.
I forgot to worry about this.
What did you think was cool when you were young, but isn't cool now?
God, what a question. Cool when I was young, not cool. I was going to say Stuart Hall to look at, but that's probably the wrong thing to say.
And I have seen some of your photos that you shared on Instagram of a young.
Okay, you've directed my brain. I'll tell you what was cool. I used to wear cowboy boots. So I had this sort of period in my life when I was 18, 19, 20, where I thought I was the thing. I used to spend a lot of time in London, the King's Road. There's a I don't know if it's still there actually. It's been a long time since I've been to the King's Road, but there used to be a shop called Our Souls.
Okay.
And all it sold was cowboy boots. And so I used to have a pair of brown suede cowboy boots, which I used to think was the coolest thing ever. No, I don't still have them because they're really uncool now, I think. Although could they be coming back in fashion? It seems like kind of cyclical, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you'll find that they are coming back at the moment, especially in women's fashion at the moment. There's quite a lot of cowboy boots going on.
Isn't that amazing how things just go around? I mean, if I'd have hung on to that big, thick sheepskin coat I've got with the white collars, at some point that's coming back, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe I missed it. Maybe that was a few years ago. So for me, cowboy boots would be the answer.
That's awesome. No, fantastic. I actually challenge you that if you see some cowboy boots in a charity shop next time and they're in your size, I think you're going to have to do that investment.
Well, you say that, right? I have an office just off Magdalen Street in Norwich, and there's an antique shop. I don't know if you've ever been in it, called Luce's.
Oh, yes.
Luce's is massive, right? Well, it's not massive, but it's like on 2 floors, as you know. In there is a pair of silver cowboy boots. And every time I go in there, they look at me. The only thing is they're a size 6. I'll never get into them. But there is an attraction. There's definitely an attraction.
So when we come back in the autumn, hopefully, all being well, and I welcome you at one of our events, I'm going to be looking down at your shoes to see if there's some cowboy boots.
You'll be looking for a while because I won't have them on.
But... Amazing. Well, Matt, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for inviting me on. It's been lovely to talk to you, and good luck with whoever and whatever you talk about next.
Absolutely. It's been a very strange ride, believe me. You'll get to enjoy some as well. But overall, very funny, entertaining, so that's great. Well, thank you so much. You take care.
Lovely to talk to you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.